Take a moment and ask yourself this. In today's world, are we speaking too much? We live in the age of status updates, stories, live streams, confessions, reactions, explanations, clarifications, public apologies, an age where people don't just share, they're expected to share, an age where silence is suspicious and exposure is celebrated as virtue. We are obsessed with transparency, but not true transparency, performative transparency. It's no longer enough to live well. I must now show everyone that I'm living well. It's not enough to be right. I must publicly prove that I am right. And in order to do that, I must speak. I must post. I must speak louder. So we speak, more than ever before. But the more we speak, the more powerless we feel. The more we explain, the more we are misunderstood. The more we expose, the more we lose something called soft power. And then we ask ourselves, have we forgotten something important? Yes, I believe we have. We've forgotten a powerful tool that wise people once regarded as their secret weapon. An art so subtle, so underestimated, that it has nearly disappeared. That weapon is called strategic silence. In a noisy age, silence becomes strange. And because it's strange, it becomes powerful. When everyone is talking, the one who says nothing becomes a question mark. And nothing provokes curiosity or fear like an unanswered question. Machiavelli, one of the most misunderstood political thinkers of all time, once said, "Men are more taken with appearances than with truth, and they measure power by what they cannot fully understand." He wasn't teaching people to be evil. He was revealing the truth of power, that the wise never say everything they know, and the less they speak, the less they can be harmed. But today, silence is often viewed as cold, suspicious, dishonest, or something to hide. We've lost the art of withholding in our chase for the illusion that saying everything is good. And yet Machiavelli knew long ago, it is silence, delivered at the right moment, that builds true authority. So why have we surrendered this weapon? And more importantly, how do we reclaim it in a world where everyone is screaming to be heard? That is what we're here to explore, starting with the price we pay for speaking too much, and the hidden strength that strategic silence quietly holds. The cost of unnecessary words. We often believe, the more we speak, the clearer we become. But the truth is, there are things that, once spoken, are lost. Lost how? We lose freedom. We lose power. We lose presence. We live in a time where everyone feels the need to constantly explain their existence. But in doing so, we often end up exposing ourselves more than we intend. Look closer, and you'll see at least 3 hidden costs of talking too much. 1. You create commitments and lose flexibility. Every word you speak becomes a kind of commitment. You say, "I will do this." You share your plans, your opinions, your promises, but the world is always changing. And when it does, you may find yourself trapped by the very words you spoke yesterday. Change your mind. People will say you're inconsistent. Take something back. They'll call you two-faced. Machiavelli saw this clearly in the 16th century. He wrote, "A ruler need not keep his word when circumstances no longer apply, for the world is always shifting." Cruel? Maybe. But real? Very. When you speak less, you preserve the space for change. You avoid tying yourself to decisions that future you may no longer stand by. 2. You reveal your mind and become easy to manipulate. When you speak, you reveal how you think, your logic, your fears, your weak spots. It may seem harmless, but in the realm of power games, information is ammunition. Talking too much is like handing your opponent a blueprint to your mind. They now know how you process, and they can stay one step ahead. Some people stay silent in meetings. They say nothing, but they are listening, watching. While others speak, they are mapping the room, identifying who's vulnerable, who can be controlled. You don't have to be silent all the time. But remember, if people can't predict your thoughts, they'll tread more carefully around you. 3. You lose mystique and weaken your presence. There's something magical about silence. It creates space. And in that space, people begin to imagine. When you speak less, others start to wonder. What are they thinking? What are they holding back? Do they know something I don't? That ambiguity builds mystique, a kind of presence you can't fake, not built by words, but by what's left unsaid. Meanwhile, someone who speaks too much, even if they speak wisely, can easily come off as overexposed, less magnetic, and worse, predictable. Machiavelli once said, "Men are more impressed by appearances than by the truth." The wise understand this, and they learn to craft the appearance they want others to see. They don't say everything. They don't show all their cards. They don't put their mind on full display, because they know what's hidden creates curiosity. What's overexplained gets forgotten. 3 types of strategic silence. Machiavellian silence. Silence is not simply the absence of speech. In the hands of someone who understands the art of power, silence is a calculated technique, a psychological tool, a method of control, and, at times, a subtle form of manipulation. Machiavelli didn't write volumes on silence, but if you read carefully between his lines, you'll see it. He was a master of unsaid things. From a practical standpoint, we can classify 3 types of Machiavellian silence. 3 shades, 3 purposes, 3 hidden layers of influence. 1. Silence for information gathering. This is the silence of the observer, not to empathize, but to read. Have you ever been in a meeting where someone said nothing, but their eyes scanned the room? They didn't argue. They didn't nod. They didn't react. Just silence. And then, at the end, they said one sentence that changed everything. They didn't need to speak often, because they had already seen everything they needed. This is the silence of expert negotiators. They don't rush to respond. They let you speak first. And while you talk, you reveal far more than you realize. Silence becomes a psychological radar. The quiet one is not behind. They're the one building the map. 2. Silence to build authority. Have you noticed this? Those who hold true power often say very little. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they don't need to. This kind of silence creates distance. It radiates a kind of pressure. You enter the room, they nod, but say nothing. And yet, you feel their presence immediately. That's not arrogance. That's positioning. The less you speak, the more weight each word carries. A sentence from an average person equals a sound. A sentence from a powerful one equals an implicit command. This is common among real leaders, seasoned negotiators, and silent operators in politics and business. They understand. The less you reveal, the more others project. And in that projection, your power grows. 3. Silence to preserve ambiguity. This is the most dangerous and the most effective, especially in environments where information is currency. You don't deny. You don't confirm. You simply smile and let others interpret. Skilled politicians rarely say, "I promise." They say things like, "We're looking into it. We appreciate your concern." You bring up an interesting point, and then silence. People think they've agreed, but in truth, nothing was promised. Ambiguity protects you from commitment. It keeps you untouchable. And more importantly, it keeps your opponents guessing. These 3 types of silence may seem simple, but used at the right moment, in the right setting, with the right awareness, they can outweigh any spoken strategy. Machiavelli understood this. He knew that not all power lies in action. Some forms of dominance exist only in strategic waiting. And silence, real, deliberate silence, is the highest form of that waiting. Not silence from weakness, but silence because you've already calculated the outcome. The psychological power of silence. Who do you think controls the conversation? The one who speaks the most, or the one who speaks the least? Most people assume the person who talks is leading. But in the psychology of communication, the truth is often the opposite. The one who stays silent, when done right, is the one controlling the room. Why? Because silence, by nature, is not neutral. It's not just the absence of sound. It's a signal, a force, a mirror. And when you understand the psychology behind it, you'll never underestimate silence again. 1. Silence creates space for others to self-reflect. In any conversation, When you stop reacting, the other person feels compelled to keep going. They keep talking, keep explaining, keep revealing. And in doing so, they begin to expose themselves. Subconsciously, they start projecting. What are they thinking? Do they disagree? Are they upset with me? And slowly, they begin to fill in the blanks with their own fears and insecurities. That's the first psychological effect of silence. It forces others to face themselves. 2. Silence reverses the power dynamic in conversation. Pay close attention. The person who needs something is the one who talks more. The one explaining, defending, hoping to be understood is often the one at a disadvantage. Meanwhile, the silent one needs nothing. They're not rushing, not worried, not seeking approval. And that calm, deliberate restraint puts them in control. Silence acts like a drawn bowstring in a conversation. You haven't released the arrow, but the tension is already felt by everyone else. This is the power of silence as a response. Doing nothing becomes the most powerful thing. 3. Silence creates mystique. Humans are drawn to what they don't fully understand. We are magnetized by mystery, by the unspoken, by the unseen. And silence, when used strategically, triggers imagination. People start wondering, do they know something I don't? Are they staying quiet for a reason? Is there some deeper wisdom I'm missing here? Instead of promoting yourself, you let others project power, depth, and mystery onto you. And what people imagine about you is often far more powerful than anything you could say. Machiavelli didn't need modern psychology because he understood human nature more deeply than many psychologists ever will. He knew that the one being analyzed is vulnerable, but the one who makes others analyze themselves holds the real power. In the end, silence isn't just a communication strategy. It's a mirror, invisible but sharp. You don't have to do anything. Others will reveal themselves. You don't have to prove anything. Power will begin to take shape around you, simply because you chose not to fill the air with noise. The trap of modern transparency. The modern world worships transparency. We celebrate it as a moral virtue. A transparent person is seen as honest, trustworthy, emotionally mature. And so, we begin to perform our transparency. Emotional transparency. Transparency about our past. Transparency of goals. Even transparency about wounds that haven't yet healed. We confess. We post. We live stream. As if not sharing means hiding. As if not expressing everything means being dishonest. But there's a truth few dare to admit. Transparency is not always a virtue. Sometimes, it's a sugar-coated trap. In modern culture, exposure is often mistaken for truth. We assume the one who speaks the most is the most authentic. The one who reveals the most detail is the most trustworthy. But ask yourself, what if the best manipulators are those who know how to be selectively transparent? They don't stay silent. They don't have to. They simply share the parts that serve them, and they share them in perfect lighting. The rest? Curated, framed, hidden. Meanwhile, the truly thoughtful ones are labeled as cold, hard to read, emotionally unavailable. What we now call transparency has become a form of social pressure, a competition to see who can open up more, who can be more raw, more exposed, more emotionally naked. And we forget, not everything needs to be said, and not everything said is true. Machiavelli understood this long before the first tweet was sent. He wrote, "Promises are from the past, but reality belongs to the present." He meant, don't trust words just because they were once spoken. Don't tie yourself to a past statement that no longer serves. Because reality changes. People change, and often, true power lies in what you choose not to say. We've traded privacy for applause, as if keeping anything to yourself is a flaw. But we forget, mystery, when used wisely, is not darkness. It's a kind of aura. You don't need to tell everything. You have the right to keep something just for yourself. And sometimes, your greatest strength is the part of you that remains unspoken. So be cautious of the seduction of moralized transparency. It sounds noble, but sometimes it's the fastest way to lose control. Machiavelli wasn't promoting lies. He was reminding us that not every truth belongs on the table, and not all honesty needs to be loud. Let part of you remain with the silence, not to deceive, but to preserve a place of inner freedom no one can touch. Conclusion: strategic whispers and winning in silence. This world belongs to those who know how to choose what to show, what to hold back, and above all, what doesn't need to be said. From start to finish, we've explored the layers of silent mastery, the cost of unnecessary words, the three forms of strategic silence, the psychological power of holding back, the trap of performative transparency, and all of it points to one timeless truth. Speak less, observe more, and when you do speak, make sure it's a choice, not a reflex. Silence is not weakness. It is the expression of inner discipline. You don't need to win with noise. You let the truth grow quietly. In a world obsessed with showing, shouting, oversharing, the one who can step back, hold steady, and listen is often the one moving ahead of everyone else. There's a beautiful paradox that few ever notice. The most successful people in silence are rarely recognized as successful because they never show off. They don't live stream every milestone. They don't argue their choices in public. They don't need to be understood. They don't need to explain. They let results speak. And when results speak, everything else becomes noise. You could be one of them. You don't need to prove yourself loudly to be powerful. You don't need to be seen to be strong. You only need to move quietly and let silence become your signature. Be the one people sense but can't quite figure out. Not because you're trying to be mysterious, but because you've let go of the need to explain everything. Silence isn't hiding. Silence is strategic whispering. It's how you speak to life without shouting. Because in the end, the winner is never the loudest voice. It's the one who spoke the least and said the most through action. Let your actions speak. Let your results be your voice.